Hello guys, my name is Zahid Hussain and these are my colleagues Joel, Mohammed and Udiwala will be joining us soon. And today I'm going to be talking a very important topic, that's the climate impact of disposable fashion or the fast fashion in the modern era. Thank you for joining me today with my colleagues. We are going to explore an important issue that's affecting the entire human civilization on this planet. And this is a cause like the fashion industry or the fashion industry have a serious impact on the environment by disposable fashion materials. And today we're going to uncover what contributes to the environmental degradation and what are the factors which leads to this and what kind of environmental measures or controversies we can just use for this. And let's begin by understanding the problems and the solution for this matter. For the table of content, I'll be going for the introduction, aims, context, data analysis, recommendation as you can see, and we'll conclude the factor as well. And for the introduction, the fast fashion industry has been surged for the past decade, providing affordable and trendy clothes to all parts of the sector of the economy. This sector is estimated to generate over 150 billion garments annually. It's responsible over the global 10% garment emissions, making it a significant contributor to the climate change. And beyond carbon efficiency, it consumes a fast washing amounts of natural resources like using the water. And for average person in the EU, it can consume like 400 meters square of land and 391 kg of raw materials and 9 cubic meters of water per year. The environmental impact extends to water pollution with toxic dyes, microplastics, contaminating water supplies, and threatening biodiversity. These alarm statistics open our eyes and ears to react to this issue so that we may not face this issue and our forthcoming generations as well. So coming to the inside objectives, the main aim of the study is to assess the environmental impact of the fast fashion industry and explore much more sustainable alternatives that can mitigate its negative effects for the upcoming generation as well. The objectives I'll be analyzing like the contribution of global carbon emissions and water and land use, to evaluate the effectiveness of current sustainable practices using the KPIs or the key factors. So, to propose actionable strategies for consumers, manufacturers, and policymakers to reduce the global carbon emissions, and to address the urgent need for sustainable practices in the fashion industry to align with climate global status and with all the world leading organizations, so we come up with a solution. And for finally, to set a framework for implementing the proposed strategies within the next 5 years for all the major countries. For the context, the bargain of fashion industry, it has been born in the early 2000s, driven by the latest trends, the old, ethnic, it defies all the cultures and ethnicities. The science of the trend has leaders like Zara, H&M, they're one of the few, and they have taken the advantage to produce large quantities in various economies, targeting the various people of all countries. The fast fashion has since been evolved, grown into a multi-billion-dollar industry in many countries, significantly carrying a global economy. So, for a high and low-cost volume business models have given rise to several environmental consequences and depletion of natural resources and destroying our earth in like simple terms. And fast fashion has always been specifically associated with sustainable or practice of high water use, chemical consumptions, and carbon emissions and waste generation for all the decades. And on this graph, we have shown a comparison of two products like jeans and t-shirts for a number of countries. As we can see, United States have the highest CO2 emissions, like 117 kg per functional year, and this has been seen as improving higher up the graph, but we can see that we have to implement such measures and sustainable methods to decrease this emission, and so on we save our mother earth and the coming nature as well. And for this factor we have to come up with a solution so that reduce the production and we recycle the products we have been used. For the next slide, we have been shown a comparison from the studies of Zohan for 2022 for the two products, jeans and t-shirts, and this is compared to what two countries, the United States and Sweden. As you can see, the jeans usage CO2 has been more in the United States and t-shirts as well. And you can see the green slides in here where the Swedish are trying to overcome what they have they go in the past. And this slide gives the exact idea the amount of CO2 that's been going on here. My colleague will take over from the next slide. Please.
Hi guys, I will taking over my colleague. I am going to explain the motivation behind this study. So, the growing awareness on this matter surrounds around the climate change and the environmental degrading, leading the interest of this research. The subsequent and the responsible for the fashion industry with respect to the pollution, water pollution, air pollution, and any other materials used on the production. More people are becoming conscious about this matter, in which their buying decisions have been affected because of the sustainable environment. However, the convenience and the affordable of the fast fashion act as a counter to sustainable consumer habits in 2021. There is a pressure in companies to change their products to sustainability because the demand of the sustainable products are high due to the climate change and the rising of the water on sea level. And the next slide is going to driving forces behind the study. This research is also practically driven by the expressions need to reduce carbon emissions, and also with the international agreements like Paris agreements. It's important to the fashion industry to give the word to the consumers to product more and more sustainable products. Increasingly, government joins environmental organizations and hopes these multi-billion-dollar companies to join on these organizations as well. This includes prospect taxes and sustainable practices. The next slide is going to be data and data analysis, finding data, identification, and resources. There are relevant data points and also sources of data. The relevant data points are the industry reports on this environmental impact of fashion industries. For example, carbon emissions, use of pollution, and use of use of water and pollutions. Consumers survey on purchasing habits reading list is adopted for the sustainable products, and on the source of data, industry reports, academic studies and surveys and policies. The next slide is going to be utilization of data. The analysis of environmental impact, consumer insights, and this case study. The analysis of environmental impact is leveraging the use of industry reports. It qualifies the quick fashion environment footprints with key metrics, carbon emissions, and use of resources. Consumer insight is basically the view of consumers towards sustainable products, and the case study of successful sustainable practice and good practice in the fashion industry with the example for the real world and problems that may arise. So the analytical tool is to aggression analysis, carbon footprint calculators, and quantitative analysis. The aggressive analysis uses use of relationship between fast fashion products and also carbon footprints and water usage. The real quantitative knowledge about the impact that fashion has caused environmental factors, allowing the coming to the data-based conclusions. The carbon footprint is used to measure the carbon emissions used in this factor of productions, and the quantitative analysis involves the case study and the content analysis that deals with consumer survey in order to glean attitudes and observations of these subject matters. And the next slide is going to be my colleague Joel is going to explain.
Thank you, Muhammad. And data analysis process. And we have data collection, statistical analysis, qualitative analysis. And in data collection, data were collected from industry reports, academic studies, and the data from consumer surveys. Ensured a mix of quantitative data such as carbon emission, qualitative data like consumer attitudes for all the rounded analysis. And in statistical analysis, applied statistical tool like regression analysis to test like engage between the fast fashion practices and environmental impact. And qualitative analysis, thematic, the case studies in the domain to realize the key themes, strategies for sustainable practices in the fast fashion industry. Data analysis and a summary of the applied analytical approaches. It is used in the both qualitative regression analysis and the carbon emission. Some gave quantitative use through regression analysis and the carbon footprint calculators, while others provide qualitative context through case studies and surveys. And the key insights are: the fast fashion industry environmental footprint is significant with major implication for carbon emission, resource use and pollution. From the consumer behavior, the corporate practices and environmental impact of the industry is a result to emphasizing the importance of systematic change. Findings: carbon emission and resource use. Carbon emission: the fast fashion industry emits a lot of carbon in the world. It contributes 10% of all the carbon emitted globally. The fast fashion, therefore, the worst 10% of the first point, and the fast fashion worsen the carbon footprint by increasing the pace at which pieces of clothing are replaced. And the water and land use: it is estimated a 9 cubic of meters of water annually, and this further translates into water pollution, in which chemical dyes and microplastic contaminate water. Consumer behavior: willingness to pay for sustainability. These surveys reveal that consumers are more aware of effects fast fashion has on the environment now, but becoming ready to pay more for sustainable clothing is still limited. The high level of price sensitivity is still the main obstacle to the adoption of sustainable fashion, as many consumers are more interested in saving money than in the environmental concerns. And behavioral patterns: fast fashion relies on the consumer behavior associated with the priority of low-cost, trendy apparel over durability and sustainability. The rise of online shopping and social media has further fueled the fast fashion cycle, with consumers constantly seeking new styles. Corporate practices and regulation. Corporate practices: overall, the fashion companies have been very slow to act as sustainable practices, influenced by ultimate priority profit margins. The case, however, is changing as some companies begin to bake some sustainability into their business models by using recycled materials and reducing waste. Corporate practices and regulations. First one is corporate practices. Overall, fashion companies have been very slow to act as sustainable practices, influenced by the ultimate priority of the profit margins. The case, however, is changing as some companies begin to bake some sustainability into their business models by using recycled materials and reducing waste. The regulatory impact: in fact, governments and environmental organizations are urging that stronger regulation on fast fashion companies be put into place, possibly even levying taxes on the types of unsustainable process. Success will depend on the enforcing this regulation and willingness to change the both consumer and the companies. And the final recommendation: promoting sustainable consumer behavior. Influence sustainable choices. Run awareness campaigns to sensitive consumers about the environment and the impact on the fashion, as well as the advantages of sustainable fashion. And influence consumers to buy less and seek quality instead of quantity. Raising awareness about sustainable brands. And the final one is incent sustainable purchases. Offer incentives to consumers who buy the clothes sustainably manufactured by using discounts or reward, or engage in the recycling programs. And my colleague will take over the next one.
Speaking about corporate sustainability practices, adoption of eco-friendly materials. So during the research, we further went through slides to talk about how we can bring in biodegradable products that are eco-friendly, that can help the ecosystem, which are encouraging companies to substitute their raw materials with recycled and sustainable materials. Also, we're talking about the supply chain. When the supply is reduced in a way, looking for quality instead of quantity, the movement of goods and services from one point to another reduces the emission of CO2 into the atmosphere. Process of sustainable productions encourage the adoption of cleaner and more efficient production processes that reduce water and energy consumption, which I highlighted earlier on about biodegradable products and less movement, causing emission of CO2. Industry collaboration and innovation. So we spoke about cross-industry collaboration between the fast fashion industry, the government, and also the agencies in charge of environmental pollution. By fostering cooperations between, as I've said, by fostering cooperation between fashion companies, environmental organizations, and government to come up with innovations that will reduce the impact of this business on the environment. Long-term investments in research and development. So when these organizations come together, they get to put forward to us a very sustainable investment that would help channel and checkmate the use of raw materials and how they impact the environment also. So we came up with policy recommendations. We have the regulatory measures, the underpinning sustainability practices, then global standards. So for the regulatory measures, we thought of how government, the fast fashion industries, and environmental body can come together to roll out sustainable bans and regulation on how the fast fashion industry uses products and raw materials to reduce the effect on global warming. Also, underpinning sustainable practice, introducing incentives also to fast fashion industry will be a boost in their economy also, thereby telling them to use more biodegradable products and recyclable products to help in green waste, and also give them business incentives like reducing taxes upon them. Then global standards, as I've said earlier on about, as my colleague said earlier on about the Paris Act, looking for a standard of whereby fast fashion industry use a certain products that are biodegradable and recyclable in the environment. And in conclusion, we say fast fashion contributes substantially to carbon emission, depletion of the ozone layer, and environmental pollution. Furthermore, we say both corporate practices as well as consumer behavior play a more important role in driving the economy in the environmental footprint of the industry. So our call to action is So our conclusion is this from our findings. The result is that fast fashion industry contributes a whole lot to carbon emission, depletion of resources, and environmental pollution. Both corporate practices as well as consumer behavior play a major role in driving the environmental footprint of the industry. So our call to action will be making sustainable consumer choices, encouraging responsibilities of corporate organization as well as the fast fashion industry in using biodegradable and recyclable products. The future of fashion has to be intertwined with sustainability, and common efforts is needed on behalf of consumers, companies, and the world at large to reduce emission and depletion of our dear health. Thank you very much.